When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hold like rich gardeners the full ripened grain, when I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with magic hands of chance, and when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of reflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone, and think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink. So today we are going to be annotating When I Have Fears, written by John Keats. So first thing is first, we're going to be using the tip fast method. So we're going to go ahead and start by looking at our title here. And what does this title do? What does this tell me about what I'm about to read? Well, this is obviously a when and if statement, or like an if statement. So when I have fears, I expect ... So these are going to be situations I believe that will happen with what happens whenever he fears something. And it is plural, so we're probably going to talk about more than one fear here. And also we see that I, so it's personal. And so the next is P, paraphrase. Well, what is this sonnet about? The sonnet is about the fear of dying too young before you've reached your potential, or before, and specifically before this author has reached his potential, this poet, and also about not finding love, and then whenever you do find it, you don't know what to do with it, and it is his struggle with that. Next is figurative devices. So before my pen, so when I have fears that I may cease to be, there's our death there, cease to be. Before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain. Wonderful use of words here. Gleaned my teeming brain. So extracted my brain. So before his pen is able, he's afraid he's going to die before his pen is able to write everything that's in his brain, everything he has. And then we have some strong imagery here. High-piled books. So we automatically see that imagery there. Hold like rich gardeners the full ripened grain. So before high-piled books in charactery, hold like rich gardeners the full ripened grain. So before he's able to create his finished product, and he uses imagery to portray that final product with full ripened grain. Whenever something's ripe, it's ready to be picked. So we've got more imagery there, bringing across his point. And then we have that like rich gardeners, the full ripened grain. So there we've got a simile, because we've got that like comparing one thing to another. So the books are like a rich gardener, like the rich gardeners to the full ripened grain. So when I behold upon the night's starred face. Well, we've got two different kinds. First of all, we have imagery here. The night's starred face. So it's like looking up and seeing all the stars. And then we've also got personification. Because obviously the night doesn't have a face. It is metaphorical here. And then we have huge cloudy symbols of high romance, and think that I may never live to trace. So this is whenever we have a shift. So there's our S in Tip Fast, the shift. Whenever we go from fame to love. Fame to love. And then we continue on with more imagery. They're shadows with the magic hand of chance. So making it almost seem mystical with this choice of wording. And that continues. Fair creature of an hour. Fairy. So like a fairy tale, a fairy world. So this is almost it's mystical imagery. Giving you the sense of it can't be touched. So then we've got some repetition here with of reflecting love, of the wide world I stand alone and think, and then till. So this is kind of the conclusion here. Till love and fame to nothingness do I sink. And there's also imagery of the shore and sinking. And that definitely touches on the subject of time and running out of it. So whenever he runs out of time, he stands alone and he reflects and he thinks this until he fades to nothingness, which was his original fear to begin with. And here, this last paragraph really is him reflecting. You can kind of imagine him whenever he says, of the wide world I stand alone. That imagery of one person standing there on his own, just thinking about this fear that he has. He faces all these opportunities that life holds for him, and the threat of his own untimely death. So what is his attitude? At the beginning of the sonnet, you could say that his overall attitude is anxious. It's fear. He fears that he's not going to be able to have these things before he dies. He's anxious due to the fact that he might never accomplish any of the goals he had set for himself. But then near the end, we have a shift of attitude while he's reflecting. He accepts that he can never accomplish such big goals such as love and success and dwell on it. And this is whenever, this is told to us through of reflecting love, of the wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame to nothingness do I sink. So he's thinking, he's taking a step back and he's understanding. So there's two shifts. There's a shift of subject to where it's fame to love, and then a shift of attitude from anxious and fear to acceptance. And then back to the title. See that, when he has fears, when I have fears, you can dwell on them, you can be afraid, or you can accept that there are some things that you just can't control, like fame and finding love. It finds you. And then theme. So what is the poem trying to say? What is the message here? And like I said before, you can be full of fear and be afraid of what's to come, what's afraid in the future, but in the grand scheme of things, you really can't control what's in the future. But you can control how you live now. When you take a step back and you look at the scheme of things, you can see that those fears, you don't need to have them because it's nothing that you can control. And so that is the tip 5 message for when I have fears.